I take on the ape.
You forgot to say a chapter and a number.
I think it's chapter 3. When I got back to room 105, I put a hand to the doorknob and an ear to the wood. I heard a man's voice. I couldn't make out what he was saying. He was yards from the door and facing the wrong way. At least, that was the way I pictured it. Mumble, umble, bumble, he said. Bum, bum, umble, mumble. Silence. A full minute of silence. Hey! There's no pictures. There's no pictures. No pictures. Lay down.
There is pictures in your book.
This is the only picture in this book. Please lay down.
Dad, you just started your Krishna book.
I will. I know. I will read that after this. Please lay down. Thank you.
Jokey.
Bumble, umble, bum, the man went on. Bum, bum, mumble, bumble. Silence. Only half a minute this time. Umble? The man asked. Umble, bumble, mumble, bum. And so on. Exciting listening. It went on and on. I thought of just walking in. It was an appealing idea. As an idea. I thought of coming back later. But that wasn't even an appealing idea. Who knew what I might miss? I hung in. The 3 minutes dragged by like rainy afternoons. I put that in a writing assignment once. The minutes dragged by like rainy afternoons. The teacher wrote, "Good!" exclamation point, in the margin. What a creep. Suddenly, the man's voice was right by the door. "I don't know," he was saying. "I really don't, but I'll give it a try." I scurried across the hall and put my back against the freight elevator door. Another minute passed. Then the man said, "Okay," and opened the door.
Can please say the gorilla gets out?
Here's the gorilla. Same as Ishmael. Now hush. Sleepy, sleepy. He stepped out into the hall, saw me, and froze for a second as if I was a cobra poised to strike. Then he decided to pretend I wasn't there. He closed the door behind him and started to walk away. I said, "Are you the teacher?" From the way he frowned at me, you would have thought this was a real hard question. Finally, he got his wits together and figured out what he wanted to say. He drew himself up and said, "No." Obviously, he wanted to say a lot more. Maybe thousands of words more. But that was all he could manage at the moment. No. I said very politely, "Well, thank you." He frowned some more, turned away, and stomped off. At school, any guy you don't like is a dork. But dork isn't
Did I go cheerleading today?
What?
Did I go cheerleading today?
Yes, you did, yes. Shh. But
Today
dork...
or yesterday?
Hush. Today. Quiet. But dork isn't a word I use all that much. I guess I like to save it up for special people. Like this guy. This guy was a dork. I took an instant dislike to him. I don't know why. About my mother's age. Dressed cheap and ugly. Dressed cheap and ugly. One of those dark, intense types, if you know what I mean. I swear I never knew what a bad haircut looked like till I saw him. He had "intellectual, keep your distance" written all over him. I gave my attention to the door in front of me. I couldn't think of anything that needed thinking about, so I just went through it. Nothing had changed, but it was all different now, because I understood what the deal was. What I'd heard through the door was a conversation between the dork and the ape. Naturally, I only heard the dork's side because the ape wasn't talking out loud. The dork wasn't the teacher. Therefore, the ape was the teacher. There was one more thing. The dork wasn't afraid. This was important. It meant the ape wasn't dangerous. If a dork didn't have to be afraid, I didn't have to be afraid. Now that I knew he was there, it was easy to spot the gorilla behind the glass. He was right where I'd left him. I said to him, "I came because of the ad." Silence. I thought maybe he hadn't heard me. Moved up to the chair and said it again. The ape stared at me in silence. "What's the matter?" I said. "You talked to me before." He closed his eyes. Very, very slowly. It's not easy to close your eyes that slowly. I thought maybe he was falling asleep or something. "What's the matter?" I said again. The ape sighed. I don't know how to describe a sigh like that, except to see the walls bending under the weight of that sigh. I waited. I figured he was getting ready to speak, but after a full minute, he was still just sitting there. I said, "Didn't you put the ad in the paper?" Stop, victim. He squeezed his eyes shut as if to blot out all the unpleasantness. All the same, he finally opened his eyes and spoke. As before, I heard it in my head, not in my ears. "I put the ad in the paper," he admitted, "but not for you." "What do you mean, not for me? I didn't see anything there that said this ad is for everyone but Julie Gearchak." "I'm sorry," he said. "I should say I didn't quite put the ad in the paper for children." "Children?" This really made me mad. You call me children? I'm 12 years old. I'm old enough to steal cars. I'm old enough to have an abortion. I'm old enough to deal crack." This great, huge, fat ape began to writhe. I swear to God. Wow.
Old is Krishna.
Shh. Forever old. I was really getting off on this. I was beating up on a 1,000-pound gorilla. He writhed for a while. Then he began to get a new grip on things. He calmed down and started talking. "I'm sorry. I tried to dismiss you easily," he said. "Clearly, you're not a dismissible person. However, the fact that you're old enough to steal cars is not relevant here." "Go on," I told him. "I'm a teacher," he said. "I know that. As a teacher, I'm able to help certain kinds of pupils. Not every kind. I can't help someone with chemistry, or algebra, or French, or geology." Please, quiet. It's enough. Silence. Here, take these off. Lift your head. Go to sleep. I didn't come here for anything like that. These are examples only. What I mean is that I can offer only a certain kind of teaching. So what are you saying? Are you saying I don't want that certain kind of teaching? He nodded. That's what I'm saying. The teaching I'm able to offer isn't a kind that will be helpful to you. Just yet. In a split second, my eyes were burning with tears, but I certainly wasn't going to let him see them. "You're just like everyone else," I told him. "You're a liar." That made his eyebrows shoot up. "A liar?" "Yes. Why don't you tell the truth? Why don't you say, you're just a kid, no use to anybody. Come back in 10 years. Then maybe you'll be worth my time. Say that and you won't hear another word out of me. Say that and I'll turn around and go home." He sighed again, even deeper than before. Then he nodded, just once. "You're perfectly correct," he said.
The gorilla?
"Yes. I was telling a lie, and I was expecting you not to see through it. Please accept my apology." I nodded back. "Stop." "But the truth may not please you much either," he went on. "Shh. Well, you can wait. Try closing your eyes first." And if you're still awake when I'm done with this chapter, I'll find your sleeping mask. For now, lay down, close your eyes. Our word. But the truth may not please you much either, he went on. What is the truth? We'll have to see. Your name is Julie? That's right. And you don't like being treated like a child? That's right. Then sit down, and I'll question you as if you were an adult. I sat down. What brought you here, Julie? And please don't tell me my ad brought you. We're past that. What do you want? What are you doing here? I opened my mouth, but nothing flew out. Not a single syllable. I sat there, gaping for half a minute or so. Then I said, what about the guy who was just here? Did you ask him what he wanted? Did you ask him what he was doing here? The gorilla did the strangest thing then. He took his right hand and put it straight across his eyes. It looked like he was going to start counting for a game of hide and seek. The funny thing was, he wasn't actually touching his face. He was just holding his hand 1 inch from his nose, as if reading some tiny message written in his palm. I waited. After about 2 minutes, he lowered his hand and said, no, I did not ask him those things. I just sat there, batting my eyelashes at him. The gorilla licked his lips, nervously, it seemed to me. I think we can safely say that I'm not prepared to deal with the needs of a person your age. I think that can be safely said. Yes. You mean you give up? Is that what you're telling me? You want me to go away because you give up? The gorilla stared at me. I couldn't tell whether he was staring hopefully or angrily or what. I said, don't you think a 12-year-old girl can have an earnest desire to save the world? I don't doubt it, he said, though it sounded like the words were pretty hard to get out. Then why won't you talk to me? Your ad in the paper said you need a pupil. Isn't that what it said? That's what it said. Well, you've got one. Here I am.